Glad to know we solved the illegal immigration issue back in 1949. If only more people had seen this movie, they'd know. But if you ignore the ridiculous square-up required to get the INS seal of approval, Border Incident stands as a courageous movie for its time. It presents the issue dramatically and humanely, with empathy for the braceros and the agents risking their lives. And in true noir fashion, it finds greed and villainy on both sides of the border. In 1949, making the bad guys unscrupulous and avaricious American businessmen was definitely spitting into the prevailing anti-communist winds. The Motion Picture Association of America, which oversaw the Production Code Administration, had become more politicized with the appointment in 1945 of Eric Johnston as its president. Johnston had been the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and was a major player in Republican Party politics. It was Johnston who produced, with the cooperation of all the major studio executives, the landmark Waldorf Statement in 1947, which essentially approved the creation of a Hollywood blacklist. As you might expect, Johnston also suggested to studio execs that they lay off films that made American business look in any way corrupt. So what makes the creation of Border Incident intriguing is that it was the product of different political philosophies. Dory Sherry, who was planting his flag at MGM with this film, was one of the higher-profile liberal Democrats in Hollywood. Screenwriter John C. Higgins, on the other hand, was a confidant of John Foster Dulles, a rising star in the Republican Party and soon to be America's Secretary of State under Dwight Eisenhower. Ensuring that a strong and unbiased film would emerge from the crossfire was the largely apolitical Anthony Mann, whose focus was always on rendering human conflict as vividly as possible. Politics be damned. Now, the death of Jack Barnes is probably the most grueling death scene of the era, and it was a harbinger of what was to come from Mann, when in the 1950s he directed an extraordinary series of westerns marked by intense violence, both physical and psychic. And I specifically brought up John C. Higgins because he rarely gets his due when fans rave about the collaborations of Anthony Mann and John Alton. Yet Higgins was the screenwriter not only of T-Men and Raw Deal, but also He Walked by Night and Mann's terrific B-picture from 1947, Railroaded. The Canadian-born writer got his start in cinematic crime in 1935 when he co-wrote a Spencer Tracy picture called The Murder Man. After that, he cut his teeth writing Crime Does Not Pay shorts for MGM. And with only a few exceptions, Higgins worked almost exclusively in the crime genre, producing scripts for pictures such as Kid Glove Killer, Main Street After Dark, Shield for Murder, and the brutally violent Prison Break picture Big House USA. One of my favorites is Hold Back the Night from 1956, which revolves around a bottle of scotch trying to make its way unscathed through both World War II and the Korean War. It's a rarely seen gem starring John Payne and directed by Alan Dwan. George Zuckerman had only a single screenplay under his belt when he collaborated with Higgins on the script for Border Incident. That was the Eagle Lion thriller Trapped, directed by Richard Fleischer, another film clearly inspired by T-Men. Well, I'm looking forward to showing it on Noir Alley, following its restoration by the Film Noir Foundation. Zuckerman would go on to write another sensational crime drama, 99 River Street, directed by Phil Carlson, maybe the only director who did violence as intensely as Anthony Mann. Zuckerman would shift gears after that, moving into straight melodrama, with the scripts for a pair of Douglas Sirk classics, Written on the Wind and The Tarnished Angels, which would be his last script before retiring from Hollywood in 1958, to write novels. Of course, I have to mention one of the few credited Mexican actors in today's film, Alfonso Bedoya, who played Cuchillo. He is most remembered, of course, for his role as Gold Hat in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, where he utters some famous line about badges or something. I can't remember. Bedoya was a Yaqui Indian, one of 19 siblings, who emigrated to the U.S. and lived an itinerant life until he caught on in pictures in 1935. Over the next 20 years, he made more than 175 movies in both Mexico and the United States. Now, the guy who played Zopilote, now he was another story entirely. This was only the fourth film role for Brooklyn-born Arnold Moss, who was already a highly regarded Shakespearean actor. He even formed his own repertory company, the Shakespeare Festival Players.
Oh, how pretty.
Let me see something.
What do you know about guns? You might shoot yourself. Be a great loss to the whole world.
In the 1950s, Moss was a chameleon among Hollywood character actors, cast in dozens of ethnic roles, from Spanish soldiers to Arab princes to French spies to Mexican revolutionaries. Well, you won't have to wait long to compare the dynamic directing styles of Anthony Mann and Phil Karlson, because next week on Noir Alley, we're showing the film I just talked about, 99 River Street, a personal favorite. John Payne plays a washed-up boxer driving a taxi in New York City, whose two-timing wife gets mixed up with a gang of jewel thieves. And it all takes place over one long night. It is pure pulp for noir people. Now, while you're waiting for that punch to land, check in on the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed, where I hope someone posts a recipe for a border incident cocktail, obviously built on a base of mezcal or tequila. Till next time.